All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. That time again. Hope everybody had a good week. Enjoy this winter day. So this is your last chance to remember what snow looks like, hopefully, for a while. So get a good look. This might be it. All right, so last time we did Genesis 29 and 30. So I have the summary here. So we'll read through this one. The title we had was Jacob's deception gets him Esau's blessing, but forces him to Laban through Bethel. And the summary was that Jacob deceives his father at the behest of his mother. Isaac blesses Jacob. Esau is very distraught upon discovery of the deception. Jacob flees to Paddan Aram, and Jacob has a dream of Jacob's ladder. Jacob names Bethel the house of God, and Jacob makes a vow to God. That one goes in the bucket. Now, this week, Julie got us started with a title. We're going to go with Laban deceives Jacob for his wives and livestock while Rachel and Leah compete over love and kids. That was Genesis 29 to 30. So, give me a timeline here. What happens first? Genesis 29 starts.
Jacob meets Rachel at the well.
Jacob meets Rachel at the well. That is exactly right. Then what?
Laban deceived Jacob by giving him his oldest daughter Leah.
That's right. Laban deceives Jacob with Leah. I actually don't want to miss one of my favorite parts of the story is Jacob kisses Rachel and then breaks down crying. I don't remember what movie it was. There's some movie where the guy makes a deal with the devil to get this girl. I don't know if you've seen it. Brendan Fraser's in the movie, and I'm going to find the title. And he overhears the girl saying that what she really wants is this really sensitive guy, who's emotionally mature and everything. And so he tells the devil, "Make me the most sensitive man in the world." And then they're walking along the beach, and there's a sunset, and he just can't stop crying. It's so beautiful. And she's like, maybe she didn't really want the most sensitive man in the world, but that's the scene I see in my head when I see Jacob kissing Rachel and then breaking down crying. All right.
Yeah,
sorry.
I definitely don't remember that part.
The crying part.
Yeah.
It's bedazzled.
Oh, it's bedazzled. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm even going to put that in here. Bedazzled. Maybe I can find a clip of that scene. Bedazzled. Yeah, Jacob was bedazzled. That's right. All right, what happens after Jacob ends up with Leah instead?
Boy, it worked 7 more years.
That's right.
16 years of work.
Jacob works 7 more years for Rachel. What next?
Leah gave birth to 3 sons. Leah gave birth to 3 sons.
First. To avoid having to list all the numbers, I'll just say Leah gives birth to sons, and Rachel's jealous. I think I'm also going to say Leah was okay with that. She did not seem to try to soften her sister's jealousy in any way.
So typical sisters.
Yeah, maybe. Depends on the day. All right. After that, then we've got children. Then what?
Rachel gives Jacob cancer.
Rachel gives hers Bilhah or Zillah?
Bilhah.
Hers Bilhah. Jacob. And
Every time we're backtracking on the previous one of those sons is Judah.
that's true. It was Bilhah's son?
No, Leah's.
It was one of Leah's. Oh, that's right. Leah's fourth son. meant praise.
Judah leads to Jesus.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. After Bilhah, we get Zilpah, I guess, right? And then what?
Leah has more sons.
Yeah, that's right. We have mandrakes. More sons. Then we finally get Joseph. Right? Rachel has Joseph. And Jacob gets rich. On the spotted goat market. That look good to you guys? Got a lot happened in those 2 chapters.
Spotted goat market?
All right,
Never heard of that word.
here we go. So now, the great escape. We're going to start at Genesis 31. Somebody wants to turn there. Genesis 31. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. And then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. And then the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am, Hineni. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. So we read that one back in like the 3rd class, that little section there. Who is it that's talking to Jacob? The angel of Elohim, the angel of God. And yet it says, that angel says he is the God of Bethel, and he is the one that he anointed a pillar to, and he's the one that's making the flock bear, striped, spotted, and mottled. And so I think we're going to see that mystery play out through the rest of the story with Jacob. I mean, at some point he's going to end up wrestling with God himself, right? Like, how does that exactly happen? If you look at Jacob's, the sons of Laban's reaction here, right? It's the path of Cain. Remember, we've seen this several times. That Cain, instead of seeing the wealth of Jacob and being happy for Jacob and being happy that as Jacob was building his wealth, he was building your wealth too. Instead, it was just, everything you have came from us, right? You're stealing. And I think we can all understand that a little bit. So, like, I don't berate the sons of Laban quite as much as maybe the story seems to call for, just because you know that's inside of you too, right? Like, we're all Cain in this story. You know, if this guy was working for you for 7 years and now he's wealthy and all the stuff he got came from you, you think something's up. And if you look in the previous chapter, something was up. Jacob spent a lot of time making sure everybody in the herd had striped and spotted goats, and every time they were mating, he made sure the striped and spotted ones were the strong ones and the plain ones were the weak ones. So Jacob's not exactly innocent in this here. And so it may very well be that Laban's wealth actually was decreasing during this time as Jacob's was increasing. So they may have had a point. Because it does say that God took all the wealth from Laban and gave it to me. So it's not quite as cut and dried as just, why can't you guys just be happy for Jacob? But, so anyways, verse
There's also
14.
an
Yeah.
interesting thing, I thought that throughout history we're seeing here is that those that God puts his favor on tend to be disfavored by the world. They recognize God's work and they want to oppose that.
Absolutely. That is why the Jews are called the miner's canary in world history.
We've also pretty much established that Jacob is not exactly the most trustworthy man.
Yes, his name is Deceiver, so there's an irony in Deceiver complaining about being deceived. But
And yet he's the one that God chose.
yeah, actually, we're going to get to that today a little bit.
Although, pretty much most people that were chosen by God were flawed in some way.
Yes, they were. And I think, as a point I made a couple times ago, that only God carries water in broken vessels, right? Nobody else can do it. It's God's way of showing I'm acting in history here. Because there's no way Jacob should have been even remembered by anybody, much less remembered by us thousands of years later. But yes, your point about like when God favors someone, then everybody else gets jealous of them. That's why I say the Jews are called themselves the miner's canary. That essentially the canaries that would go down in the coal mines with the miners, if there was carbon monoxide, the canary would die. They'd see the canary in the cage fall over and die, and they'd know there's carbon monoxide. We got to get out now. And most of history, when bad people are on the rise, they go after the Jews first, and they exploit that jealousy of their success in all the cultures that they go to. So that's a very good point, Dan. All right, verse 14. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, "Is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? They do not exactly feel loved. Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, do whatever God has said to you to do." Or whatever God has said to you, do. This is the only thing recorded that Rachel and Leah ever agreed about. They said, it's time for us to get out of Dodge. And the plan is we're going to take all our stuff and sneak out of here. I don't think we can have like straight up war because Jacob clearly has no army. He has a lot of wealth, but he's got no army. So verse 17, Jacob arose and set his sons on his wives and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan, to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' And now you have gone away, because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" And Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them.
What are the gods? Like how, like if he takes them, They
Well, it's
like,
not much of a god if you can steal them.
oh, right. I'm like, but there's multiple,
Yes.
God, like, there's plural. I mean,
If your news can basically be stolen that easily, maybe you're probably misguided there.
It is a very, very good question. And so, we know one thing about them. They were small enough to fit in a little satchel that Rachel can sit on and nobody knows, right? So
They're
it
just
clearly was
his?
small, right?
like, you know,
But
ones everyone knew about.
I think the term gods here is being used not as the actual gods. They viewed the idols themselves as vessels of the actual gods, right? Like they didn't believe that that was the actual god. They believed that by having that in their house, that god would look favorably on them, and if they sacrifice to these idols, that god inhabits the idol and they can ask him for things. The general view of the ancient world and gods is that the point of sacrifice is to gain power for yourself. And so when you needed something, when you needed the power to win a war or to get wealthy or whatever, you took something you loved and you sacrifice it to that god. And so keeping those gods around the house, I have a feeling the little ones were sort of like good luck charms, sort of a thing. You know, they may not have been the big one that you sacrifice to, but Hindus do this today. I mean, they have the various gods in their little cupboard in the house, you know, that you open up and burn the incense to and
I
stuff.
mean, it was clearly important because he's like, why did you take all
Well,
this?
I think they were gold, right? Like they're expensive. That's part of it. Laban doesn't care about anything but money. So
I think they gave them to the person that would get the inheritance too.
Oh, that
If
could
I
be.
remember right, the culture, so they would have given them to whoever was going to get all the wealth. So also it could have been a little bit of a, you're keeping it all from us, now what are you gonna do? We have, you know, what you would give for the inheritance.
I think also it was Laban thought he could catch Jacob. Like this was really, if he did catch Jacob in this, Laban is actually in the right. So whether he valued them or not, he's like, I've got you now, you know, like this is my chance. They do call this, so I mean, I think Rachel did believe in these other gods, right? That's why she stole them. It doesn't say why she stole them, but if she didn't believe in them, why would she steal them? They call that this belief in other gods and the God of the Bible, like the merging of religions, they call that syncretism. And so I think Rachel was definitely a syncretist here, that I believe in Jacob's God, my husband's God, but the other gods are still here, you know, and I'm still going to keep them around. And I actually think the best explanation of this I read was from Dennis Prager's commentary. He said that Rachel's behavior may have been similar to that of Niels Bohr, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, who was said to keep a lucky rabbit's foot in his laboratory. When an astonished visitor asked, "But surely, Professor, you don't believe in a rabbit's foot?" Bohr responded, "Of course not, but they say a rabbit's foot brings you luck whether you believe in it or not." So it may have been Rachel just thought, well, just in case, let's have the other gods for some luck. Now, the geography here, I measured from here, that's where he started. He's going down the King's Highway. And this is the hill country of Gilead, and this is where Mizpah or Gilead. Mizpah's kind of tricky because there's several Mizpahs, but Gilead, that particular one that he also calls Mizpah, is right here, along the King's Highway, right at the north edge. It's 300 miles, I measured it, along that highway, from there to there, and Laban got told 3 days after he left, and Laban caught him in 7 days. So that means that Jacob made it 300 miles with the caravan of everything he owned in 10 days. 30 miles a day. That's hard when you're by yourself. He was booking it. And so when he later tells Esau, we can't drive all the herds, you know, too much or they're all going to die. Yeah, well, he was going 30 miles a day until he hit this point down here. And Laban still caught him. Let's see. Where's my page?
It's on your slide.
Oh, I thought I heard it fall. Why did God tell Laban to say nothing good or bad to Jacob? I always thought that was a strange phrase. Why tell Laban don't say anything good to Jacob?
The blessing of Abraham. I will curse those who curse you, and I will bless those who bless you.
Possible.
Didn't
I think if Laban had been nice to Jacob, Laban was a schemer, right? Like his job was figure out how Laban can get ahead in this situation. If Jacob takes everything away, Laban doesn't really get ahead. If he says bad things to Jacob, Jacob leaves, goes on to Canaan, and they never meet again. If he says good things to Jacob, maybe Jacob goes back with Laban to Nahor, right? Like, the good means don't entice him to come back with you. He's supposed to go to Canaan. That's what I told him to do. And the bad means you better not hurt him along the way. Let him go and finish this up. And in the end, that's what Laban does, right? He sets up a pillar. This is the neither good nor bad pillar. You will not come back with me, and I will not go hurt you. I see that as God outsmarting Laban, right? He didn't say, don't hurt Jacob. He said, don't say anything good or bad to Jacob. Like, he left Laban no out. Now, why didn't Laban believe Jacob when Jacob said nobody had the gods? Because Laban is a thief. And there's no honor among thieves. He's like, I would have stolen them. So I don't think you're telling me the truth. I would have lied to you about it. But as we go into this, I think you could cut the tension with a knife. Jacob just said, whoever has the gods, put him to death. And he doesn't know it's Rachel. And Rachel's sitting there with the gods. She's got to be sweating. I mean, you can imagine, it would give me a heart attack, I think. Anyway, so 33, Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two female servants. But he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent, and he entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. So he searched, but he did not find the household gods. And then Jacob became angry and berated Laban for the first time in his life. Jacob has gotten a backbone. Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was by the heat of the day. By the day the heat consumed me, and by the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. And I had to walk uphill both ways in the snow the whole time. I do get that sense here. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap. And they ate there by the heap. And Laban called it Yegar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore he called it Gilead and Mizpah. Mizpah means watchpost, it says. For he said, the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. And then Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me? This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me, to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. Notice he got Nahor in there. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, who's my dad's God too. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. And then Laban departed and returned home. I find it a great irony that Jacob never lost his temper with Laban, except now, and Jacob's actually wrong. He was right all the other times, but he was actually wrong in this case.
I kind of felt the tension there.
But I do think the anger, the emotions that came out in that little exchange between Laban and Jacob, you learn that Jacob was right. Laban was never going to let him go. Laban says, these are all mine. Whatever I told you before, I've always thought of them as mine, and you took them. And so the agreement that Jacob and Laban make are actually the agreement between two crooks. It's God watch between you and me, right? We both know we're deceivers. We both know we're going to try to take advantage of each other. So we're never going to meet again, and God's going to know what you do when I'm not around. So ironically, there's been times that people use that like, which verse it is. It's the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. People have used that as a blessing to like end a meeting before. It's not a good thing. It's like, I don't trust you and you don't trust me. We will never see each other again. All right, so verse 30 or chapter 32, out of the frying pan into the fire is what they should title this one. So Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's camp. So he called the name of that place Mahanaim, which means two camps. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight. So clearly there's some communication amongst this world that Jacob has been there 20 years and he knows actually that Esau is in the hill country of Seir, which is, come on, there we go, down here. So this was Edom and the hill country of Seir was right in here. So he's up here, but he's been up there the whole time. So news must pass in this world somehow because he knew where to send his emissaries to. So, and the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, oh, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. And Jacob's like, oh, great. And there are 400 men with him. That had to be a very... You ever get that feeling when you're driving and the police lights turn on behind you, and that, like, it just, your heart sinks into your gut? I think that's what happened to Jacob right here. 400 men. Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, well, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. That's not what he said, actually, by the way. He did not say he would do him good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. I think Jacob's scared because he knows he's been a deceiver for 20 years and the chickens are coming home to roost. I think he's really scared because he knows he deserves it. I mean, this is why he left in the first place. I'm sure he was awake all night. This prayer was probably happening over and over again as he was trying to sleep that night. And you look at his prayer, it's almost like Jacob the lawyer, was making a mental checklist of the actual promises God had made. And so I went back and wrote down the actual promises God had made to Jacob. First one, the land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. And Jacob had to be thinking, I don't have to be alive for that to come true. Right? The offspring will be like the dust of the earth and shall spread abroad. I don't have to be alive for that to come true. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you. I don't have to be alive for that to come true. I think this is why Jacob is so worried and praying to God here. I will keep you wherever you go, is what he said. Keeps a little ambiguous. Like at some point he's going to die, you know. He was hanging on to that a little bit. He changed the I will keep you wherever you go into I will do good for you. And I will bring you back to this land. That's one, he hasn't made it back to Canaan yet. But he's just not sure. And so that's why in his prayer he says, well, but if Esau comes, he'll kill all my kids too, and then my descendants can't be as the sand of the seashore, right? He's sort of trying to get everything he can in there to God to say, like, you have to stick by your promise, God. You have to. But I do think it's interesting that even Jacob has doubts. This guy has seen God face to face. I mean, even if God appears to us and tells us when life gets hard later, it's still hard to know exactly what the plan is. So I hope we can all kind of sympathize with Jacob here. That in that hard night where you don't know what's coming next, you know God doesn't want evil for you, but you're not sure what the plan is. That's where Jacob's at. Jacob went, so verse 13. So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau. 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. These he handed over to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and put a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first, when Esau my brother meets you and he asks you, to whom do you belong and where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third and all who followed the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. So he's trying to maximize the emotional impact of the gift, right? You send them all at once in one big blob. It's not the same as getting one gift, and then another gift, and another gift. That's why at Christmas, when the kids open the gifts under the tree, you give them one big gift. It's exciting, and then they're let down while the other kids open all their gifts. So you gotta like smooth it out into one gift, another gift. The gifts can be small, and you're much happier with many small gifts usually than one great big one. So that's his plan. That same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had. But Jacob was left alone. This is a very weird story. And it is one of those stories that it just feels like somebody left something out. There's a man who wrestles with them. What are they wrestling about? Doesn't say. And does anybody, you find out it's God, but does anybody think God couldn't overcome Jacob? Esau was the hunter. Jacob was the man who dwelled in tents. Now, surely, tending all the goats and sheep all this time, he's probably gotten a little bit bigger, but it's God, right? Like, something just seems off about this story. And you really think God couldn't, get away from Jacob if he wanted to? It's just weird. But I didn't understand this story, actually. I thought I understood this story until I looked at the geography. So, then the geography made me realize I did not understand this story. I knew in general, Jacob's up here and he's heading this way, and Esau is here and he's heading this way, right? So it sounds like in this story that what Jacob has done is he separates the 2 camps. He sends all of the gifts this way as Esau's coming up this way, so Esau will meet the gifts. And then it sounds like he took his wives and children and split them up and sent them towards Esau as well, thinking they'd be a shield for him. Maybe he won't kill me if he sees my wife and kids first, right? Well, the problem is the Jabbok River. Here's the Jabbok. Here's Succoth. Here's Peniel, where he meets God and wrestles with him. Jacob was coming down the king's highway and hit the Jabbok River and went this way because he's headed to Canaan. This is where he ends up at, Succoth. Esau's down in Edom down here, and Jacob's servants told him, hey, Jacob is headed this way, and Esau decides he's going to go meet him. So Esau comes back up the king's highway to the Jabbok, and he's actually chasing Jacob now. Jacob has gotten ahead of him to Peniel, and so when Jacob sends the servants back, he's sending them backward. And at Peniel, this is the actual hill where Jacob wrestled God. Let me turn off the hill country of Gilead there. This is it. Esau's on the north side of the river because he doesn't know that Jacob's going to be sitting here. So Esau has crossed the Jabbok back here, and he's heading this way on the north. Jacob is sitting here on the hill of Peniel. He has sent his children across the Jabbok River to the south, but Esau is up here to the north. And then he climbs on top of this hill overnight to sit and watch. So he sent his kids and his wives away to protect them from Esau. And he's sitting here basically like, I'm going to have to meet Esau myself, and I hope that they get away. That's what he's done. They crossed it here, and they're sitting over here. And he's here waiting on Esau to come down this road. So I thought previously he was using his kids and wives as a shield, and that is not what Jacob was doing. So he may be many things, but he was at least not willing to sacrifice his own kids for his own safety. So Jacob was left alone, verse 24. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. And then he said, let me go, for the day is broken, or has broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. I mean, I'm picturing this like, you ever have a young kid, grab your ankle? Like, my kids do this all the time. And you're like trying to get away, and they're like, no, I'm not going to let you go. I picture Jacob hanging on to God's ankle. Like, I won't let you go. I won't let you go. Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. And then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? Other translations say, you must not ask my name. And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose up upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. And therefore to this day the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. So what were they wrestling about? All we can do is guess. But I have a feeling they're wrestling because they don't agree. They don't wrestle because they're just buddies, right? God is wrestling with Jacob either because God wants Jacob to do something that Jacob won't do, or because Jacob is trying to do something God doesn't want him to do. It has to be one of those two options. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out what could these things be. I could see Jacob terrified on top of that hill that night alone, sent the kids away, and Jacob's going to run. He's trying to take off, and God is wrestling with him to keep him there. And so that's why God doesn't overcome him wrestling. God's overcoming is just keeping him where he's at. Doesn't let him go. And then when he maims him, the maiming makes it so that he can't actually run away, right? Like now he's limping, he's not going to make it. That's the maiming. So that seemed like it would make sense to me. I don't think that's actually what it was. Like my opinion in the end isn't going to be it, but it at least explains what's going on with the wrestling and why God didn't prevail over him. Like he won the wrestling match, but it ended in maiming. The other thing could be that God was trying to get Jacob to just turn to him for salvation, right? How many of us sit there and how many humans just won't accept God's gift of salvation? God's wrestling with him, but he's not changing Jacob's free will to say, you have to accept that I'm going to save you. And Jacob's like, no, I'm going to fight Esau. I'm going to fight Esau. I'm going to take him on. I think I can do it. I know he was big before, but I have no choice. I'm at my wit's end. I got to fight Esau. So God comes down and wrestles with Jacob to say, you aren't fighting anybody. You've been wrestling all night and you did not win. And finally Jacob gives up and gives in to God. And he only prevails over God by completely surrendering himself to God and saying, you have to bless me. Like, both of those stories I think work. I think it's the second one. I think it really is Jacob prevailing by finally giving in to God. If we turn to Hosea 12, we get a little bit of a clue about this story. So, if you guys want to turn with me to Hosea chapter 12. Hosea is the first of the minor prophets, the longest of the minor prophets. Minor prophets doesn't mean they're not important, it just means they didn't write as much as everybody else. There, it's got it. Hosea chapter 12. Hosea is writing, so we got our timeline here. We got like 1,000 years up here from ballpark, from Abraham all the way over until David, and then David shows up, and we got from David to Christ, right? Or I put this little post-it note right here. This is Hosea. He's towards the beginning of the prophets. The prophets all show up after the Civil War happens. Israel has left God, and God keeps sending these prophets to warn them bad stuff is coming. So you start with Jonah, then you have Isaiah, and right at the same time as Isaiah, you got Hosea. So Hosea, this is what he writes in chapter 12. Ephraim feeds on the wind and pursues the east wind all day long. They multiply falsehood and violence. They make a covenant with Assyria, and oil is carried to Egypt. The Lord has an indictment against Judah. So Ephraim was representative of the north of Israel, the northern kingdom, and Judah was the southern kingdom in this. So this is God saying, not only do I have a problem with Israel, but I got a problem with Judah and the southern kingdom too. The Lord has an indictment against Judah and will punish Jacob according to his ways. He will repay him according to his deeds. In the womb he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood he strove with God. He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with us. The Lord, the God of hosts. The Lord is his memorial name. So you, by the help of your God, return. Hold fast to love and justice, and wait continually for your God. A merchant in whose hands are false balances he loves to oppress. But Ephraim have said, but I am rich, I have found wealth for myself. In all my labors they cannot find in me iniquity or sin. I am the Lord your God from the land of Egypt. I will again make you dwell in tents, as in the days of the appointed feasts. I spoke to the prophets. It was I who multiplied visions, and through the prophets gave parables. If there's iniquity in Gilead, they shall surely come to nothing. In Gilgal they sacrifice bulls. Their altars are also like stone heaps on the furrows of the field. Jacob fled to the land of Aram. There Israel served for a wife, and for a wife he guarded sheep. By a prophet the Lord has brought Israel up from Egypt, and by a prophet he was guarded. Ephraim has given bitter provocation, so his Lord will leave his blood guilt on him and repay him for his disgraceful deeds. I know you're thinking, what does that have to do with anything? First time I heard they related, at least Jacob's mentioned in there. I had to think about this a lot. What exactly is God saying? God is saying to Ephraim and Judah, you think you're so powerful that you're descendants of Jacob, and being descendants of Jacob means that you're going to be okay forever. You can do all these bad things because I gave my promise to Jacob. I can take my promise away anytime I want to. Look at Jacob himself. Look at all the stuff that he did, right? The only prevailing Jacob did was when he wept and sought God's favor. So we learned that's how he prevailed against God in this chapter here. Jacob prevailed against God by finally giving in and weeping and asking God for help. God says here, everything you have came from me. Even Jacob, the patriarch whom you're trusting in so much, whose name you've adopted as Israel, has struggled with God, even he was nothing without me. And it was only when he gave in to me that he actually prevailed. In his weakness did he finally win. And so I think that's a pretty good picture of, the part where he says he went to Aram, he's saying he had nothing. He had nothing, and it was only because of me that he ended up with all these flocks and herds and wives, right? Like, this was my doing. So, I think that's what's happening in this story here.
And I think for all of us, it's in our nature, every human being, to try to justify any blessings that we may at the time have thought came from God. As time goes on, we can try to talk ourselves into thinking, well, it really was because I was smart or talented or good at something, you know? So I think we all can do that. Like, even if at the time of the success we know it came from God, then as it goes, we somehow convince ourselves it really was us that built up our wealth or built up our reputation or whatever it is. And I think for a lot of people, it has to come to the point kind of like that where you realize, oh man, if I keep thinking my confidence is in what I did, then I can't ever really have real confidence in the Lord, because you're going to keep thinking you've got to figure it out and get out of something. And I think even in that, we can see, even though it looks like he's extra, I don't know, because his life is the one that's all out in the book for us, you know. But we can see ourselves in a lot of that, in his steps and what he does. And anyway.
That's a very good point. I 100% agree. It's like what you have, you worked for it, but it really came from God. You know, like you were in there, but without me, it's nothing. And I agree with you. It is hard sometimes to look back and be like, well, maybe it was me. It's very good. The name he gave Jacob, though, this is something where, you know, most of the Hebrew words get translated, but if you were speaking this in Hebrew, every time you said the word Jacob, you'd be saying the word deceiver, right? His name was deceiver. So when we read it with the names, our brain doesn't swap in the meanings of the names, which makes it, the story, I think, not quite as rich. God renamed deceiver to struggle with God. And I don't know if you guys know, like, we got adopted into the nation of Israel by following Christ, right? Like, we are brothers of them. Did you ever think I got adopted into the struggle with God? You thought I got saved, but you also got adopted into struggle with God. That's what Israel means. And if you want to know what the difference, like what the contrast of that, the opposite of that is Islam. Islam means submission to God. It means you don't hang on and beg for blessing. It means that you just immediately do whatever this God says. And God, by naming his chosen people struggle with God, is telling us, I want you to struggle with me. Don't sit there with your questions and avoid asking them of me. Don't keep the hurt inside and not tell it to me in prayer. You're supposed to have a relationship with me. You're supposed to struggle with me. That struggle is part of life. And when we accept Christ, we got adopted into that struggle with God. So, as a Christian, if you're looking at other Christians, you're like, they just have everything so great, their life is so wonderful. Well, you probably don't know something about their life. But it's just not the case. We all struggle with God. But from here on out, Israel's the name that is used. There's no more one son from the patriarch only gets the blessing. From here on out, everybody gets it, and they're all called struggle with God. All right. So I'm going to wrap up. We'll start back on 33 then next time. I'm going to wrap up here, though, with why doesn't he give his name? Why does he say, why do you give my name? Why doesn't he give his name? Why doesn't the angel he's arguing with give his name? It is an intentional mystery.
Did
right?
we had this discussion before about kind of like with the seeing his face kind of thing with between the angel and of Jesus.
Exactly right. This is the angel of Yahweh discussion, right? He leaves his name a mystery, and I said even in some of the translations where he says, "Why do you ask my name?" It is perfectly equivalently translated, "You must not ask my name." Like you can't ask it. Why is this intentionally a mystery? And what is it? Why is his name a mystery? I think if we flip to Colossians really quick, Colossians 1, we get to read about the mystery that was revealed to the saints. Of course, we learned in Hosea that his name, the name of the man who wrestled Jacob, was Yahweh, right? He said the Lord is his memorial name. We learned that. Colossians chapter 1, verse 24. Now I rejoice, this is Paul talking to the church in Colossae. Now I rejoice in my sufferings for your sake, and in my flesh I am filling up what is lacking in Christ's afflictions for the sake of his body, that is the church, of which I became a minister according to the stewardship from God that was given to me for you, to make the word of God fully known, the mystery hidden for ages and generations, but now revealed to his saints. To them God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. The mystery is Christ. The intentional mystery in the Old Testament was Christ. And if we flip back to verse 15 in this same chapter, he tells us the mystery of Christ. Verse 15. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, for by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. The mystery that had not been revealed, the mystery we're going to have through the whole Old Testament, is actually the name of this man who wrestled. It is the Trinity. The mystery that humankind was not given to know, but only clues, was the Trinity, that there is this man who is God, in whom all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. And that's why he doesn't tell him his name. Because if he said Jesus, then we know too much too early. Anyways, so we'll pick back up on 33 next time, and we will try to get through 35.